This is the Paltalk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments. Whether you agree with yours truly or not, no retribution, and thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I remind you to check early and often, just like voting in Chicago, at our news site, PaltalkNewsNetwork.com, to catch up on items that you may or may not see, hear, or read in the mainstream media. We have a great dispatch in from Tarin Navid, who is our correspondent in Pakistan, about the 5 Americans from Washington, D.C., who were arrested there in Pakistan. They went before a judge today there to seek bail and were denied bail, but there's a very interesting development. There's a push for a prisoner swap that I have not seen reported anywhere else in the media. So that's one that you may want to read about. There's also a story about a controversy over an aide to President Obama having supported a man who was charged with aiding and abetting terrorists, publicly supporting that individual. That person was later convicted, and then this guy was appointed to a position at the White House as a representative of the White House to an Islamic council. Once again, a case of poor vetting of presidential appointees by the White House. There is news also on the Paltalk News Network site about another recall involving Toyota. As you know, there have been 2 so far, one involving the accelerator sticking, the second involving brakes that don't always work. Now they're saying that in Corollas there may be a steering problem. But there's some inside information that you will probably not see, read, or hear anywhere else about the incentives that Toyota will be offering the motoring public coming up soon. And so you can get a jump on that as you decide whether you may want to buy a Toyota. I don't know who would, but some people might. At this point, a lot of people are really sour on Toyota. They're going to have to do something to restore confidence. And the background information on that is there as well. We are waiting the arrival of our guest, Robert Mahoney. This is his seat right here. He is the Deputy Director of the Committee to Protect Journalists. I've invited Mr. Mahoney on the show today, and I certainly hope that he shows up because the CPJ has issued their annual report about the hazards of being a journalist in this world of ours, concluding that in 2009, it was the deadliest, most dangerous year for journalists and bloggers worldwide. I'm going to hold on to that story until he arrives and talk about another story that's kind of a shocker. A CNN Public Opinion Research poll shows that the majority of Americans during the midterm elections want to throw the bums out. If there is an incumbent, they want to replace that incumbent, they believe, nationally, with anybody but the incumbent. And in fact, there is an interesting story by Robert Garcia talking about Sarah Palin resigning as governor of Alaska and Evan Bayh resigning as a U.S. Senator from Indiana, suggesting that because there is such anti-incumbent fervor in the nation, that the best way to seek higher office, i.e. a potential run for the White House, as both are speculated being interested in, is to leave office so as not to have an incumbency tag as an albatross around their neck, because being an incumbent is a negative these days. So if they quit their positions because they are fed up of business as usual in the political arena and then come back and run for office as a non-incumbent, then they look like they're coming from the outside kind of as mavericks and might be interested in running for office. Let me tell you, while you may find that part of the CNN market opinion research poll not surprising, down in the story, kind of buried in the story, was, as almost an afterthought, was an indication that a majority of Americans believe, now of course he's not running this year during the midterm elections, but a majority of Americans believe that Barack Obama, at least now in 2010, ought not to seek a second term. Now, we have a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen, before the election, his potential re-election as President of the United States. But this is, to me, a shocking development, that a majority of Americans at this juncture believe that Barack Obama ought not to run for a second term. But getting to the matter at hand, the congressional elections, as we wait for our guest Robert Mahoney to hopefully join us to talk about the deaths to journalists and bloggers worldwide, the most deadly year, 2009. We will talk about that, whether he shows up or not. If he shows up during the first half of the show, if he stands us up, we will talk about it during the second half of the show for sure. We have already had stories and have discussed here on this show what is known to the Democrats as the Massachusetts Massacre, and what is known to the Republicans as the Massachusetts Miracle, and how that reflects on the midterm elections. Our own contributor, Jennifer Horn, is running as a Republican for Congress in New Hampshire, and she was watching neighboring Massachusetts very carefully during that race, because she believed that if Scott Brown, the Republican, grabbed the seat held for so many decades by the lion of the Senate, Democrat Ted Kennedy, that would bode well for her campaign and of others who are seeking office as newcomers. This reminds me a little bit of the Congress that was taken over by the Republicans, led by then House Speaker Newt Gingrich, and their contract with America. People were just fed up with incumbents. Does anybody but the guy or gal